we have Ed Einstein from United Network Associates. So with UNA, with Ed, we work very close. Ed is, first of all, a very avid eBA user, very hands-on. So he's an expert of workflow technologies as well as eBA. So in that sense, there are a lot of things that we need to be learning and hearing from Ed. So I'd like to welcome Ed. Good morning, Ed. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me?
I hear you well, loud and clear.
Thank you.
So if you're ready, I'm gonna stop sharing so you can take over the screen.
Yeah, let me do the screen share there.
Perfect.
And here we go. And let's see here. All right, here we go. 1 second.
Take your time.
Just share the screen in here. 1 second. Okay, and we're good. All right, we should be good now. Okay, just another moment here. Having a little trouble sharing my desktop. We've enabled all the security, you know.
Yes, definitely, it's important. And cybersecurity is also one of your expertise, I know, so I can understand it.
Yes, I have my team has locked me down here, and I have my presentation. Can you see it now?
We don't see it.
Oh, okay.
So there is supposed to be, I believe, share button there.
Yeah, I did hit that share button, and it's just not coming up. I apologize.
No problem. Let me do this. Let me take over the screen for a moment.
Okay.
Okay. And then let's try it again. I'll stop sharing, and then you can try again. Let's see if it's gonna trigger anything.
Maybe that will do it. Yes, sir. For allowing me. I appreciate very much being invited to speak at this symposium. I just want to start by saying that Chris at TechWorks is quite an incredible speaker and leader in the industry. I really enjoyed what he was saying. One of the important factors for this region is MSPs and technologies working together to create a bigger atmosphere, a bigger solution for everyone in the region. It's great to interact with Chris and hear his philosophies. He's a true thought leader in the industry, and always motivated to push forward. Our company has gone through a digital transformation. I'd like to describe what we do and how we've gone through it. Our digital transformation took place through Bimser. We had, as you see on the screen, our company, United Network Associates. We're a remote monitoring, cybersecurity, and asset management company. We support several hundred clients throughout the nation, some internationally. We manage their computer networks. We do cybersecurity assessments, a plethora of cybersecurity services to get them secure, train them, get them to speed to modern use of technology around cybersecurity. And then, of course, asset management. And we've gone quite down the rabbit hole there with asset management and the use of Bimser. I guess I can't forward the presentation there. That's me. I'm 28 years in corporate government IT. I did 2 4-year terms as it's called Commissioner of IT in a fairly large government in this region. I was also the liaison to the FBI for the 2016 elections. Quite an interesting story there. We rebuilt the civil service titles, and I'm a fractional CIO for hundreds of manufacturing distribution companies all around this region here. If you don't mind helping me out there. So we were established in June of 2000. I consider ourselves an extremely reliable IT company, which allowed us to make it through these years. a full gamut of IT services, from project to monitoring to really doing everything that client needs to manage their IT infrastructure. Now, as an MSP, we don't do software, we don't work on phone systems, we don't build websites. We bring in partners to do that. So as a reliable IT vendor, we bring in partners to create a full solution for the end user with the parts that we don't necessarily do in-house. We have multi-tier service. We have a level 1, level 2, level 3 engineers. Again, in 20 years, we've kind of accomplished quite a bit, along with our help desk operation and quite a bit of large cybersecurity operation. We do cybersecurity assessments where we go and analyze problems, advise people, even do remediation. God forbid they've gotten into trouble with any hacks or problems that they've had with cybersecurity of any kind. Authorized dealers for Microsoft, we're called the Microsoft CSP. That's a very interesting conversation today. And again, further need for asset management, especially with doing large licenses. People like to hire us because we're consultative. We look at the improve performance. We understand, we go in, we speak with, and create a long-term plan with that client. The goal is to increase efficiencies while keeping the highest level of protection possible and reduce long-term costs and any risk in data loss if possible. That is a core thing. Asset management compliance has been an interesting part of our growth. So I have noticed, though, many MSPs, not including ourselves, are sort of hitting a wall, right? So they've done computer work. Where do you go from there? We've noticed in our business that as we expand, as we grow, getting involved with some kind of software where we drive it has quite a bit of an effect. So regulatory compliance is all these different rules that are I'm sorry, coming up across the country and what compliance is. Now, we've been studying this. Compliance is really changing and growing in different manners in different parts of the world or even the country. It's really important to understand where this is going if you're in that business. Data compliance also has a different meaning to completely different users, right? So we're coming in from an MSP point of view saying, hey, we've been managing all of your equipment. We've been managing all of your users, right? Where's the compliance behind it? So that's where we have brought Bimser to deal with that solution for us. Compliance can be categorized in two kind of different areas there. Internal compliance, of course, deals with standards set by internal management of a company, processes, procedures that have been put in of how to do your work, if you will. External compliances deals with regulatory things set by DFS or any of the regulatory bodies that are in that particular industry. So you have to keep in mind that your internal compliances and external compliances need to match. That's not always the case in many situations. And that's where we've noticed that an MSP really has a good chance of helping that end user, at least to get started. Here are some of the challenges in gaining compliance overall for businesses in this region. If we can, let's go. All right, so it's really interesting what we're seeing, not only in asset management compliance, but compliance across the board here. Managing compliance standards, right? Your market, our market is constantly evolving. Things are changing. How does the regulatory policy work with what's going on in your particular operation, right? Some people think that creating a standard, now you're there for years. It's something that requires continuous review and evolution based on the evolving market trends that are happening in your industry. Number two, inadequate data recording. Many people are trying to adhere to compliance standards, don't necessarily have a system that they're tracking with, or in our case, many clients have a number of systems, and then they sort of manually mind melt them together to give them a larger compliance standard. But a system of record that can not only create the compliance standard, but track it and allow for easy changes over time is the key to maintaining compliance long-term. Fragile database systems, right? Documenting workflows will not benefit if you don't have a reliable system to store all your data. Now, some people think that this is not a problem. I can't tell you how many clients and situations we've touched where the database is not fully conformed. There are some database issues and or categorization hasn't happened. We dealt with one database issue last year where there was a particular organization that was showing social security numbers to users that shouldn't see it. Well, it required encryption in the database, analysis, and as compliance changes in their industry, they have to hide other things that are showing up in different users' screens. Number 4, inconsistent baseline processes. Really important to kind of have a baseline that you're working with. What is your business doing? What is the basis process? And document it, have it reviewed, and go forward with it each year. So inconsistent baseline processes is something that we're constantly running into. 2019, well, this was our baseline process, and it slightly changes. Continue to make improvements on it. If it sits there for too long, it loses modern, view of it. So, and you have to bring it across all of your departments, right? I just want to say for some of the larger organizations that have an accounting department, sales department, right? That has to kind of be stretched across all the departments. Achieving regulatory compliance. Now, I just want to say before I go forward with this, there's going to be questions. I hope to be able to interact with you, talk about how we've gone through a transformation and how it is important for an MSP to begin this conversation, right? So here's some of the key guidelines to achieving compliance. I have noticed that as an MSP, I have clients that want to go into a compliant environment. They've operated in sort of a manual way. They've invested money in technology. They want to start to get there. Well, it really, that MSP has a good in to create something with a Bimser situation that won't break the bank and gives them a roadway in. And I'll discuss that further in a little bit, right? Key guidelines to achieving regulatory compliance, understanding the legal requirements. I have read some of those compliance documents, and I'm sorry, I've had to go to an attorney to have them reviewed and make me understand them. Don't think those legal requirements, just because they're in your particular industry, you know all the parts. Attorneys many times are involved to give you the ins and outs of what it means to your legally to your business. Number 2, appoint the compliance management team. Okay, so reaching compliance isn't done by the owner, the manager. It's done by a group of people in your organization. Hey, John from sales, Judy from accounting, and you begin this rudimentary compliance team of people who will be responsible to do things in a compliant or right way. Number 3, organize regular audits. So now you understand the legal requirements. You have this team in your business. You now need to do it on a regular basis. You've created these standards. Your team and the people involved need to at least annually, at the minimum, review those compliance standards and do regular audits on them. And it should be a standard practice in your business. It's not so easy sometimes. People are difficult. How do you organize regular audits? It has to be worked into your schedule. Make it a fun thing if you have to. Pay people overtime, in some cases, an hour or two or overtime. Those auditing those compliance documents has extreme value and has well worth value to pay a little bit of overtime or give your employees and that team some room to do their work. Number 4, automate data entry processes. Key item, how is data put in and how is it's put in through your database. We worked with Bimser, and I'm going to describe that in a very interesting way, right? We wanted to automate our data entry process by our clients filling out a form with their information. So now when we have a new prospect, we send them a form. That form is automatically put into our database and followed through all the way through down to giving them a master service agreement if they want to do business with us. Regularly monitor compliance. Number 5 is important. It means that you're monitoring compliance. You've gone through the legal requirements. You've appointed your management team. They've done regular audits. You've automated a number of data entry processes. It needs to be looked at. You got to look at it over time. Number 6, set up disaster planning. It's great if all this stuff is working perfectly, but God forbid something happens in your business. A lot of people fall down on this, those unexpected problems that come up. I mean, look at what happened with COVID. How did that affect your business? How did you plan for that? Right, Kev? So data compliance practices require DR and BC planning. So clearly, having redundancy of your data, being available during an emergency, critical piece. Thank you, Kevin, for moving to this slide. This is pretty incredible, and I've been following this for about a year or two. Now, it seems that a lot of companies have achieved some kind of disaster plan, right? So, all right, so I have a document here. It's in the main folder. It says that if something happens, if there's a fire, if something happens to the owners, something happens to the managers, there's some kind of plan in place. Well, it gets kind of stale after a year or two, right? It's been proven in the industry that 23% of those folks who have created a DR plan for their business don't even bother testing it. How do you know it's working? How did you set up a DR plan prior to COVID, and how did it execute, right? If you never got a chance to test it. What we did here is we got involved with Bimser for a primary reason. We had a number of clients who were ready for this conversation. We're ready to work in a unified workflow system. We're ready to look at compliance and be serious about working in a compliant manner. Well, if you look at some of the costs of this software out there, it's tremendous costs for some of this stuff. Some of these clients were asked to be engaged for 150, 200,000, whatever, a fairly large engagement to analyze, to get involved, to begin the long roadway of automating their process. We found Bimser to be the right package for us at the price point that it's come in, and at the manner that they conduct themselves. We were able to take Bimser and Kevin and his folks, and those clients who were not ready to spend the 2, 3, 4, 500,000 on a big software approach would dip their toes in the water with the ability of Bimser. Now, Bimser, and what I like about it the most, it's an entire galaxy of really awesome software that can be customized and pulled and pushed in many fabulous ways. But also, it allows some of my clients to dip their toe in the water, if you will. Well, I need to automate this process. We can involve Bimser and their fabulous product called eBA to begin the conversation and test and trial and put processes in place that automate that workflow at what I have found a more professional, very customizable, and very price conscious point. Now, I just want to say that this is working for us. And what's interesting is some of these clients have the idea of eventually we'll be in some kind of large ERP system. You know, our goal, Ed, is to have Oracle PeopleSoft, right? Well, By using Bimser, you can try out some of those workflows at a fraction of the cost. And if you do end up going into a large ERP later on, Bimser and eBA can tie right into what you've created. That's the really powerful part. Now, if you look at a lot of the ERPs in the industry, right, you're looking at high cost software with a lot of add-ons that can be added on later on. Many of these ERPs come with modules. This module cost, a costing module, a purchasing module, a sales module. Well, consider that you can have that core system and append the eBA and the Bimser International software to those products at a much lower cost. Now, I am from Europe, and it's pretty incredible how accounting practices are quite different in Europe than they are here in the United States or other parts in the country, right? So in Europe, where SAP is a standard, Bimser has been able to do just that, append their system into their expensive software without buying all of the particular modules they may not be using fully, right? So if I have a piece of software and they need this one-off, or for example, like a commission calculator, you're gonna buy a whole module to that, you could append Bimser and have that as part of the workflow, right? Let me just talk about it for a little bit. So the eBA system, out of 3 systems that Bimser has, is the one we started to work with. We were looking for a simple way where we can take our clients in, our prospects in, do a discovery. When they agree, shoot out a master service agreement and begin their engagement. We used Bimser and Kevin's company to customize the system for us that's being used in that way. Couple of key features, obviously drag and drop application development, offers fast application development experience. I was part of that. His team would, in front of us, do development and not only develop our screens for us, but show us how to do it ourselves, where I was able to understand the logic in a quick way. Key item to having a partner like Bimser. Number 2, integration connectors simplify connection to other applications to avoid double entry. So yes, the key thing of working with Bimser, we have this data now in their system. I can pull and push on it in many different ways. One of the things we're trying to do with them is our N-Central type of tools that monitor workstations and servers. Well, Bimser has the ability of pulling and pushing that data in and out of their system. So of course I have sophisticated workflow ticketing systems, monitoring systems, but being able to work freely in here gives me a little bit of expansion where I don't have to break the bank and can create other workflows that enhance my process, right? eBA helps to comply with quality standards and regulatory obligations. That was the key thing. I needed to make sure every client had a master service agreement in a particular way. Every client's information is put into my database in a secure, particular way. With the help of Eva and my team who created these standards, we were able to program them right in there. And now without thinking, the software pushes me into this compliance regulation. That's the whole idea. How do you work with a company who's going to get you there, right? Right. And obviously support governance and increased efficiency, clearly. UNA concentrates on a couple of interesting security things right now. We do vulnerability assessments, one of our largest services, where we go in and assess what the security stances of our clients. We do penetration testing. That is a higher level external test to see what vulnerabilities are out there that the hackers can see. Number 3, training and user awareness, critical thing, right? And I think that training and user awareness comes in play with creating your compliance team and keeping it going over time. Training and best practices of current threats is a big problem. If you look at the industry, the users that are falling for those tricks are still falling for the same tricks. Those numbers are very, very high. Well, that's a user training issue. That's a user awareness issue. Besides security, the standard practices of computing need to be brought forward and discussed amongst your organization. Number 4, security policy. Yes, your DR policy, your security policy need to be documented items that are reviewed annually, just like your employee handbook, right? Legally, you're supposed to at least go through it every year or two, make changes. Legally, you're supposed to train all your staff on sexual harassment. Well, certainly that security policy and the computer use policy needs to be in line with all of that. Number 5 is an important part. Myself, TechWorks, a number of sophisticated groups that are part of Bimser and some of this community out here offer remote monitoring and management, where there's this continuous tap from the MSP and their group right into your system. In some cases, they're taking full responsibility for what's happening in your organization. So thank you. I wanted to kind of keep it somewhat brief and be able to go through some questions and answers. Our goal with Bimser is to not only help us with our digital transformation, but just to bring us into their clients. Believe it or not, I have noticed in my sale that as I'm talking about my digital transformation, meaning that an MSP that's engaging with a software company to begin automating processes, the clients see that. I use it as a selling point. I describe what I'm doing in my business and encourage them to take the similar action. And I think that's a really powerful sale. I think talking to a client and describing their digital transformation without yours as a vendor is somewhat incomplete. I'm interested to hear some questions. If there's some back and forth we can discuss here.
Sure.
I just want to say that Sam and I worked together for what, a year. This is the first time I've seen his picture, and he's more of an effective developer than I've seen many other groups do. I also want to say that I'm from Vienna and I speak Romanian. I believe business and the approach is quite different in Europe and other parts of the country, even South Africa, than it is here in our region and certainly in America. I appreciate that your approach and the way you guys have graduated allows you to really be in the weeds as opposed to high level without being in the weeds.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Ed. So let's see if we have any questions. To our attendees, there is a Q&A button where you can type your questions that we can see and try to address. Some of the questions, for example, that we got, Ed, maybe we can ask you if that's okay. In terms of eBA, for organizations other than MSPs, do you also recommend it for business process digitization?
Well, clearly, I just experimented on myself, but clearly our goal is for our clients. So we do have a fairly heavy manufacturing and distribution client base. So specifically for them, multiple departments, maybe some of them have been automated, but there's still some stragglers. Bimser is a great tool to come in and start that conversation, and certainly at least experiment. In the end, it's very easy. They don't have to change. So we can start with Bimser, we can do some R&D, we can stand things up, and before you know it, you have a working package that does not need to be put into an ERP and can stand on its own inside of that workflow. I think that's very positive. When you begin to look at the cost of Bimser in comparison to some of these tools, there's quite a difference. And I think clients really notice that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So in terms of eBA, what type of expertise is needed? Do you need a programmer, or you just need to know the business process in essence? What would you say?
Kevin, you know the right questions to ask. So in our case, we took one of our senior technical engineers who had some database experience, and with the help of Sam, was not only able to work with him closely, but teach him the workflow and get him going. In my opinion, you don't need to have a strong programming background to jump into these screens. And I'm sorry I didn't take a screenshot, but there's one part of eBA that shows you the entire data workflow in a simple to view graph. Every time we spoke with Sam, right, we jump on the call, I'd say, hey, this little icon connecting to this, you don't need to be a programmer to have deep level conversations about how that workflow fits. And you can learn it over time. I felt that the coding was quite simple to understand.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Ed. Let's see if there is another questions that we should address. So we talk about eBA, how it is actually been helping Ed and his clients to digitize and automate for compliance purposes. We also talk about what it is needed. So in terms of eBA, is it? Do you have also experience with the mobile application?
Yes, absolutely. We were able to stand up eBA in our server. We VPN'd in, and we had the mobile application running as well. It was quite easy to stand up, to be honest. It's quite fast. It's as intuitive as you need it to be. And the fact that we can kind of hack at it, and Sam's in the background to guide us and teach us, made it a very easy and non-painful way to experiment and jump in. And that's what we're pitching to our clients. That's what we're going to our clients. Now, keep in mind, right, Kevin, some of our businesses in this region, yes, they've automated. They may have software that's 8 to 10 years old. How are you going to modernize that? Well, in those groups, there's, one department, two department that are complaining, oh, the software doesn't do what I need to anymore. Why not work with Bimser for a reasonable amount of time, buffer those holes, and allow you to work with Bimser to create a larger workflow, slowly getting you out of that legacy system.
One of the questions that we get, so you're MSP, managed service provider, just for our attendees who don't know the meaning of the abbreviation. So the acronym is basically MSP, right? So yes. As you know, we are actually active national and internationalists, and there may be some other colleagues, there may be other MSPs actually operating in different parts of the world, or maybe nationally in US, for example. So what would you tell them as to for them to digitize and automate, especially for compliance purposes? You mentioned it actually in your presentation, but just to summarize, colleagues from other MSPs, what would you say that how they can actually benefit from eBA in their practices?
The MSP is a critical role today. I find that the MSP has the responsibility of taking your end user through the compliance world. We're the ones who have to guide them, get them vendors, or even yourself, and get them going there. In order for you to drive compliance for your clients, you need to be in that world of compliance. So that MSP, yes, I think there's room to add software. I think Bimser is the type of software that allows an MSP to enter into the compliance world without shifting their entire business. I think MSPs, compliance, it's where it's going, where the future is. I always talk about something called the licensed IT operator in the future. I don't know when that's coming, but much like plumbing, electrical, contracting, those are all licensed industries, right? We're working in a completely unlicensed industry as we speak right now. we are the future of making sure everybody computes in a secure environment. And that secure environment comes from logical workflow, which can be introduced by Bimser. And yes, I recommend that most MSPs at least begin to look at compliance through a workflow system and a partner. Bimser, you're doing billion-dollar operation in Europe. You've created such standards. It's an easy card to enter compliance and offer that to your clients through a company like yours.
Ed, thank you very much for your insights. Much appreciated. So let us continue with the presentation with SYNERGIZE 2022. So for our attendees, so you heard from Ed as for his experience, hands-on experience about eBA. eBA is our low-code workflow business process automation and digitization platform. That's the road to digital transformation. And Ed shared his insights and his experience as to how MSPs, managed service providers, can use eBA to comply with various compliance requirements, as well as to be able to serve their clients better. You can see Ed's email address on the screen. So if you'd like to continue this discussion, feel free to reach out to him, and you can be in touch with your questions as well. Moving forward, as we have mentioned, and Ed, thank you so much for your insights. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. And it was very nice to see Chris speak today. And it's hard to follow a great speaker like that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.